Good morning to you. This morning I'm going to cover the exam paper May-June 2016 for COS1512. And I'm going to start with question 4 because that counts as 31 marks, and I feel that that's quite high considering the exam is out of 70, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or it might even be out of 100. Yeah, 75 marks is the total. So 31 of those are quite important marks. So that's why I'm skipping straight to question 4. Now, I want to just help you to understand how I propose that one can think about things as they're going through. I've obviously used code blocks, so in a way I've cheated because you have to write these things out in the exam, but hopefully even the principles that you learn here might just help you with applying them in the exam. So first I read through, it says here, note, read through the whole of question 4 below before you attempt to answer the questions that follow. Use separate compilation to define a class called champion that represents a champion of an online game. This class contains 3 member variables. Okay, so before we go any further, because we're studying from home and we want to see the thing actually work, I would recommend that you go to codeblocks.org over here, and you go and get yourself a copy of the latest code blocks, which, as you can see as of today, the latest is still version 16.01. To get hold of the latest one, you click on download, and then from the download you say you want to download the binary release. Okay, and then from the binary release you choose this one that says code blocks min-gw setup exe. You can click on either SourceForge or FOSS-Hub. I don't think it really matters. I generally use SourceForge, but I know there's people saying that they're trying to promote adverts and stuff like that. So anyway, you click on that link and it will take you to the download page where you can download the latest code blocks version 16. The one that's applied with UNISA is outdated. It requires you to play around with setting up the min-gw, whereas with this 16.01 it works fine. Unfortunately my internet is slow, so I do encounter lots of problems, and so I'm not even going to waste my time trying to show you, but basically it should take you to the download site if your internet is better than mine. Alright, so yeah, let's get back. So what I've done is I've opened up code blocks. I went to choose file new, and I started with file new project, and I said I'm choosing a console project. Click on go. When it asks me this question, I just click on next. I choose C++, click on next, and then over here I give my project a name. And what I've done is I've called it question 4, so that's why you see this information here. For this exercise I'm not going to proceed from there, okay, but you just click on next and finish, and you should have just a main file that's created out of that, and it'll be a very basic file. Okay, from there I click on file and I go new and I say class, because the first thing they ask me here is use separate compilation to define a class called champion. So there's a name, I type it in here, type in champion, and with some modifications of these two options, I've told it must keep all my source and header files in one location. So I just click on here and I make the change. Okay, and you click on create, and it will automatically create the header file and the CPP file. So now what I've done is I've read a little bit further, and it says to me that use a separate compilation to define a class called champion that represents a champion of an online game. This class contains 3 member variables. So there's my key. 3 member variables. These are the 3 member variables, and they've got their own data type. The first one is a data type of string, and the variable name is called name. So I add that under my private. I use the private one. I say string and I say name. Then over here we've got 2 integer variables, and they're called score and level. So I use int score, int level. That's all that I do initially. You can ignore the rest of this for now, but those are I've defined and declared my member variables. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you for the part 1. For part 2, what I've done here is I've gone and expanded, and I've read through the rest of this information, and you can see here it says, in addition, the class should contain the following member functions. So these are all member functions. Okay, a default constructor that initializes name to an empty string and score to a level to 0, and score and level to 0. So this over here is actually what is called a default constructor. Okay, basically got no parameters, no variables that anyone is going to apply. It's basically calling a blank object of champion. Okay, and later you'll see how they want us to initialize our first set. But basically we're just saying we want to be able to call a object of champion without giving any details. We just wanted to. So that's what a default constructor is. Then we read further, and it says an overloaded constructor that accepts a champion's details and sets name, score, and level to specified values. Guess what? Those are basically the 3 variables that we've got here, the member variables. So all I do is I actually just take these and I copy them and I paste them up here. And I just remove that it's a semicolon, and I delete a line. And then I've got my 3 member variables over here. And this is what is known as an overloaded constructor. Okay? You're basically allowing an object of champion to be called, and you are passing it the different member variables while you instantiating or calling that object. Okay, so that's all that's really required. Is you have 2 options: one where you specify the member variables at the start, and one where you don't specify any member variables. Okay, and this over here is what is known as a destructor. And a destructor just basically closes, makes sure that anything that the class might still be using, when you close the program, it's going to make sure it frees that memory up. And so that's why it says here a destructor that does not perform anything or any action. And I know in the assignment it wanted an outgoing message saying, I hope you made the right selection or right choice or something to that effect. It was quite an interesting assignment that you guys had for assignment 2. Okay, the next thing it says here is access a function getScore to return the value stored in an object's score member variable. So this is what a accessor function is. Basically, we know that score is of data type int. So all we're doing is we're passing that function the same data type, because it's going to return a value of type int, because it's going to return score. So that's why our function needs to have a data type of int. And then we did define get score, and I know in most of the things, because a return function shouldn't be making any modifications, they require you to use this word const, so that it knows that you understand nothing will change, basically. Okay. So in the next one it says an overloaded operator, which is the greater than or equals to compare a winner to the champion, to see if the winner could be the new champion. The operator greater than equal operator is implemented as friend function with the following prototype: bool operator greater than const champion and champ1, const champion and champ2. So that's where I've got this basically defined. All they've done is, you can see I've just got to add for the header file of this thing, you've got to add the word friend before boolean. So at least they're kind enough to give us hints during the exam, and yeah, basically copy whatever they've got written here and just add friend before it. But that is only for the header file, okay? Because this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the header file, okay? Then it tells you further down, if this function returns true if champ1 has at least the same score and level reached as champ2, and false if not. So we only apply that into the implementation file. We don't need it for the header file. Okay, so we'll carry on reading. There's an overloaded extraction operator. Now this one, I must be honest, I also get lost at sometimes. So I've just learned this line off by heart as best as I could. If I was ever tested on it for an interview or something, I think I would forget it. But I'm hoping that someday I'll remember it off the top of my head, but I'm not a full-time developer. But anyway, you can see here it says an overloaded extraction operator implemented as a friend function, so that it can be used to input values of type champion from any file. Okay, and the same with the next one. It says an overloaded insertion operator implemented as a friend function that displays a champion's name, game score, and level reached. So basically, we've here defined an R stream, and we're saying R stream and O stream. R stream meaning input stream, O stream meaning output stream. Okay, and then basically it's saying here we're going to pass R stream a input called ins. We're naming it ins, and we'll also be passing it a class champion, an object champion named champs. So when we call that, it will basically be passing those two variables, or two functions, member variables, whatever you want to call it. And the same with the output. So the key over here is this AND symbol, because you know that AND in functions means that you can pass the variable to the function and it will return it. It will make whatever changes it needs to, and it will return that information. So that's why you use these. So best to learn these two lines because they've been in the exam for quite a few years. But obviously the only thing that really changes is this part over here, depending on whatever class they want us to define. Because this is obviously taken from this class here, and then this is like a member function. Alright, so that is the header file. The other important things of the header file is to remember this bit, the if ndef and the champion underscore h, and define champion underscore h, because as far as I remember they used to give us marks for these, so best to add them when you're talking about creating a header file. And then you must remember that your header file has a semicolon outside of these brackets, and this end of command over here. The rest of these things that are after the / you can ignore, because those are comments that are made. Okay. And the other thing that I see I'm missing over here, which I've defined in the main header, is I already start with the standard that comes in C++. The part where it says hash include iOS stream and using namespace standard. So this is my completed actually header file that I'm currently using, that's active for project or the Question4. And you can see this is the 2 lines that I was telling you are missing from this second part. Okay, so that's how I get hold of the second part of the thing. Then the third part is the implementation file. Now this can take some time. But if we read here, we're going to get 8 marks just for declaring our header file. So whatever you do, just remember some of those tips that I've given you there. And I don't think that they're too difficult. Okay. And I know during exams we get very stressed. So try not to get stressed about it, but just learn the difference between the header and the implementation file. Okay, the implementation file, now that is where a lot of stuff comes in. Alright, so that's where we need to read the finer details of these in-between lines that they've got here. And as you can see, this is our default constructor that's got no parameters that we're passing, no member variables, and yet it's still initializing the variables to the defaults that were specified in this option 1. A default constructor that initializes name to an empty string and score and level to 0. So there's my empty string, there's my score to 0 and my level to 0. Okay, and as you can see, most of our implementation file requires this part to show us that it's taken from the champion class. Okay, and then obviously whatever member function we're calling. So if we have a look here, this is our main class and this is our member function. So that's basically what is being passed over here. Okay, and then guess what? We needed to do our overloaded constructor, and so this is where this came in. So what I do is I actually just take whatever's in the header over here and I copy this section, because whatever I need in here is already in the header file, and so it's quite easy to copy that. Then I paste it over here, and all I do is I go and copy this champion bit and I add it to the beginning of these things. So as you can see, like here, it's missing it. So if I had to compile this, it'll give me errors. But so I'm going to fix this, or not really, because this is my actual champion one here. And you can see there it's got champion, and there it's got champion. And so here's my overloaded constructor, and all I'm saying is here's my 3 member variables, and I need to initialize them with whatever you pass me. So that's what I've done. Okay. Then here the default destructor, or yeah, not default, but just the destructor. You can see it doesn't do anything, so it doesn't need anything to be specified. But I'm sure they'll give you some marks for that anyway. Then obviously our get score. Here's our get score. You can see it was the data type of int, and we have to put champion, then get score. And there it just returns that score, which is our member variable. That's all it does. Okay, here's where it starts getting a bit more complicated, because when you read the question, it says here, the function returns true if champ1 has at least the same score and level reached as champ2. You need to pay attention to that. They're basically saying and over here is we need to check two member variables. Okay, so we're comparing the two different class objects, and their member variable against one another, and we're combining it with the AND. Because they could use or they could, but in general I find that they use AND. Okay, so all that's happening here is we're saying, is champ1, which is being passed over here, greater than or equal to champ2, which is also being passed here? And also, is the level of champ1 and champ2 greater or equal? If so, then return true, else return false. So there's some nice marks that we can get, and they're not too difficult. Over here, we've got our input stream, and we're saying that if we're going to read a text file, we basically need to load each parameter, similar to how we're loading it over here. We basically are saying, guess what? I'm creating a champion thing. You can initialize it to 0, but I needed to set the name and the score and the level for each line that you've got. So that's what that does. And then over here is if they want us to display the output. The thing that's missing on this is return ins. Although even without it, I seem to have got the desired results, because you basically have got an input, and we're saying that it's an input type of ins, and we're going to pass it a class type of champion with the variable or member name champs. And so we're using that same champs over here, and the ins we've got saying that it's an input. Okay, and then we're just doing basically the reverse of the output over here for the output stream. Okay, so that would cover basically the implementation file and the header file, and there you've got 19 marks already, which is great for me. I think that 19 marks will go a long way. Okay, then the next part becomes the main part, and here we have to read a whole lot of information. And the information says, demonstrate the class in an application program, main, which is generally how we define things, okay, that is used to list all the winners that have equaled or bettered the current champion score. It says here, allow the user to enter the score and level reached of the current champion. Use the overloaded constructor to initialize the champion object current champion to the game score and level the user specified. Initialize the name for this object to an empty string. So now what had happened was I had already started getting carried away, and I said, hey, go string, and I had left this with champ, comma, and semicolon. Then I went to int champ score and champ level, and I was ready to, I had written it all out. And then I realized, hold on, these guys wanted initialize the name of the champion to empty. So I had to take out my line here, and I initialized that champ name to empty. So I'm still using the data type string with the name or object name champ name, and then the other two variables which are ints, and that's champ score and champ level. Okay, so then I ask the user, please enter the score and enter the level, okay, which the user can do. And then what I do is I initialize exactly what they're asking here. They're saying use the overloaded constructor. So which one was the overloaded constructor? When I have a look at my header file, this was the overloaded constructor, where I have to specify the variables and pass them. So in my main, this is basically where I'm specifying and initializing that. I'm getting all the information as requested, and then I'm passing it through to this object type current champion of object type champion. Yeah, sorry. Object current champion of object type champion. Okay. Then I'm basically saying, guess what? I've got a file and I'm going to use the if stream. So don't forget to include your F stream, what do they call these things? Includes. I just call it includes, but I think that's right. And I'm saying don't declare it. I'm giving it a name, in stream. And then over here I'm saying, okay, in stream, you need to try and open this text file, which they've said here. All the best players after a recent competition are stored in the file winners.txt. Use a while loop to input the winners from winners.txt. Use the overloaded operator, greater than or equals, to compare the scores and levels reached. Read from winners.txt. One by one with current champion, which is here. Okay? And display a list of all the winners that have at least the same score and level of the specified champion score and level. Okay. So here I've started my if stream. Then I've said it must open the file. And you could go even one step further and say if it can't open the file, then let the user know that it's an error. But for the exam purposes, I'm not going to do that. But I would not know whether the lecturer wants it or doesn't want it. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm declaring a new type of class file champ object type of champion object type. Okay. And then I'm saying while the file has not reached the end of the file, then it must read the input stream and feed it the file champ, which is this object. Okay. And then it must do the test, and it must say if the current champion is greater than or equal to the file champ, then see out the file champ, which is the class it's currently reading. So if we go ahead and execute this code, I'm going to close part 3. You should see it works quite nicely. Please enter the score of the current user. Before I carry on, I suppose it might help if I actually show you what results I've got in the winner file, so you know where I'm getting my information from, because you won't know how did I get my answers. So there we go. I've got a little text file named winners. And there I've got an object named Matthew with a score of 20 and a champ level of 10. And I've got Mark, which has got 30 and a champ level of 20. And Luke, which is a score of 40 and a champ level of 30. And John, 50, and he's got a champ level of 60. So the only ones that should actually show now are Matthew, Mark, Luke, because I'm going to go and set this to be 60 for the score, and I'm only going to set it to 50 for the level. Okay. And there you have it. Matthew, which has got the 20 and the 10, and Mark, which has got the 30 and the 20, and Luke, which has got the 40 and the 30. Alright, so that answers that question. Yeah, if you guys have any questions or queries or anything that's unclear about what I've presented here, please feel free to ask. You know, I'm on WhatsApp, I'm on Facebook. I've got as many groups going as possible. Yeah, but hopefully this helps you with exam preparations and gives you some understanding of where we're getting this information and how I'm generating it, and gives you some insight what to do during the exam time. Thank you for watching, and good luck with the exam. Goodbye.